Hello and welcome to session 3, everyone. We're going to be listening to Louise Kelly talk about why we need a world where risky play is okay. So Louise is currently a kindergarten teacher at Natural Beginnings Childcare in Gordonvale, near Cairns, and she's been working in the early childhood profession since 1993. Her professional interests include the educational project of Reggio Emilia, nature pedagogy, and the benefits of risky play. Louise bases her philosophy and pedagogy around the belief that children must be taught how to think, not what to think.
Hi, I'm Louise. It's my first time using Zoom, so bear with me. As I said, I'm the kindergarten teacher at Natural Beginnings Childcare, and I just want to talk to you all about our journey, how we got to risky play and sort of bumps and triumphs that we've had along the way, in the hopes of sharing that with you, that then you guys can help you out with your journey. So how we started, actually I'm going to play an acknowledgement to country, and this is our children from last year's kindergarten group. So risky play can be defined as thrilling and exciting activity that involves a risk of physical injury and play that provides opportunities for challenges, testing limits, exploring boundaries, and learning about injury risk. We all know about play and how it's talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for our children, play is the serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. So at Natural Beginnings, we began our journey into risky play really in about 2016. My director and I went to a meeting it was a community meeting with people from the Department of Education, the local prep teachers, the librarian, so a whole heap of community members, and it was based upon the census results that they had gotten for the Gordonvale community and the concerns about how many children were in really vulnerable category. In every category, there were a lot of vulnerable children across the board. So we all got together to talk about what we could do as a community to fix this, to help it. In the past, we'd all sort of worked separately. So it was the early childhood centres. There's a C&K and 2 childcare centres. There's 4 schools within that area, and we had really worked independently. So this group was about bringing us all together and how we could work as a group to help these children. So I went back from this meeting and was thinking, I'd been doing research into risky play, and I had been talking about it at my service and to the director and the area manager, and I sort of had gotten a bit of a maybe, maybe not. But once we got these results, and I was saying to them, this is how we can help, this is how we can fix it. And our service is designed for risky play. It's set on an acre, it's set on a hillside, so it's like all of our yards have slopes in them. There's very little flat ground, so the children have, there's trees, mature trees, places to climb, places to hide. It's perfect for risky play. And so I brought this back, and I'd been looking into nature pedagogy with Claire Warden, and that went hand in hand with risky play. So we decided to give it a go. And as you can see, like in the picture I've got, this is standing at one of the highest points in our yard, like looking down. And originally, the yards was divided into 2 yards. There was a nursery toddler yard, then there was for the older children. We go up to Osh as well. And our director decided to take down the fences. So we just have one big yard and it's for everybody. We also have within the rooms, the children can move freely throughout the centre. So we made huge changes over the last few years, and it has been hard, but it has also been really rewarding. The mixed age groups as a kindergarten teacher can be difficult. I love it, but I also hate it because at times I love the sibling interaction. I love the fact that the children that are in the nursery coming up through the years to kindy, I've known them since they were babies. I know these children. They know me, vice versa. But it is hard doing a kindergarten program when you've got toddlers coming in and playing and things like that. But that is also part of the learning of risk, because I haven't changed a lot of things. Like we have scissors out all the time, and that's a part of the toddlers learning, is that they don't run around with them, they don't take off with them. It might take us like a couple of months at the start of each year, but generally it's getting to the point. Other educators have noticed that they can do things like leave the scissors out as well, and it's not a problem. So this is where I'm saying you can see down onto our bike track. Like the children often, where I'm standing up here, we'll get the bikes and they come down that hill and they go around on the bikes. And when people first come to visit the centre, at times it does freak them out, but the children have learned the science of how to maneuver these bikes, the velocity, the speed, and touch wood, we have very few injuries. The most, I had one child this year has broken an arm, but they were inside and they jumped on a cushion and fell. So, you know, it was just simple things like that. It's not, touch wood, as I said, it's not been the bikes, it's not been the climbing trees. So why should you as educators encourage risky play? Because I know I used to work for ABC and they were very risk averse, very risk averse. And so then coming from that environment, I had to unlearn a lot of things with this. So it was a really big learning journey for me. So risky play can reduce the risk of injury because children become more confident in their abilities and begin to understand their own personal limits. So 6 ways that children should engage in risky play. Play at great heights, play at high speed, play with dangerous tools, play near dangerous elements, rough and tumble play, and play where children can disappear or get lost. Putting risky play into action is about focusing on safe as necessary over safe as possible. Provide guidance. Don't let your own fears get in the way. And I have like a 17-second rule before setting hard and fast rules. I take 17 seconds to observe how a child is reacting to the situation, because 17 seconds gives them the time to assess and to react to the situation themselves before me stepping in. Always allow time and space for uninterrupted by adults play. Create high quality indoor and outdoor environments and provide plenty of natural and man-made loose paths. Ask yourself this: are you an educator who enables risky play, and do you feel comfortable surrendering some of the control to the children? Does anybody have any questions?
No, but I will say though, Louise, I'm with you. Do the risky play.
Yeah.
And I used to work for ABC too, so that resonated with me. But,
you know exactly what I'm saying.
I do know exactly. But even in Education Queensland, I had remember having to justify why did I have the plank so high on the obstacle course. I said, trust me, that wasn't me setting it that high, it's them.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'm here just in case, but let them go. If they think they can do it, they can do it. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions so far? No. Okay, so we do what we call going on country, which is essentially bush kindy. And this is a play where children can disappear. So our service, we're very, very lucky in that at the back of our service is a creek, and it's a really high ravines, and it doesn't run most of the year. So for years I'd been saying to them, can we do bush kindy? Can we do bush kindy? And I had an area manager who said to me, you don't have the right staff for that. Like you'll never do it. The staff here aren't capable. And now I'm a Leo, and the minute you tell me I can't do something, that's it, I'm going to find a way. So I really researched it. I went to forest school training, and I think one of my proudest moments as an educator is when he's since left the company, but I'd put videos on our Facebook page of the children down in bush kindy, and he had liked it, and I thought, like I did it, like, so yeah, that was really good. So with our bush kindy, you can see here, this is our entrance to bush kindy, and like it's not easy. It's down it's like a goat track. They have to come down the track, and there's a couple of stairs, and we only put those in because the department came and were like, it needs stairs. And our argument was that we wanted to try and keep it as natural and as challenging as possible. So we did put in a couple of stairs at the start, but then that's it. And again, we've had no, touch wood, no injuries from it, and it is hard, but the children managed to do it. And since starting, and now all of our age groups go, so even like our younger babies will go down there to bush kindy as well. So this is some of the children going down, and it's really good teamwork. They help each other out coming down. One of the children, the first time he came down, because I always give them a talk beforehand about what the rules are, things like touching snakes, touching insects. There's goannas and things down there. So he got to the top and had an absolute freak out that there was going to be a snake. And the children that were already down started yelling out to him like, no, there isn't, it's fine, like come on down. So there's 20 children like encouraging him, and he came down and they all like cheered, and that was a really proud moment for him and for them as a group. They helped each other out. So we call it connecting to country because the First Nations people, country encompasses an interdependent relationship between an individual and their ancestral lands and seas. This reciprocal relationship between the land and people is sustained by the environment and the cultural knowledge. So we have a lot of foster children at our centre, and it's very hard at times to get the knowledge from their communities because they're coming from the Cape. So this is one way that we can really embrace culture and encourage them to connect with the land of all children, but connecting with the land and creating that love of nature. So part of our bush kindy, the risky play is because it is a creek, and the department, when they came and they signed off on it for us, they did say that we cannot go down there when it's raining for fear of flash flooding, even though we investigate and there's not been any cases of it, but we accept that. So that was the one thing that they put on to it. They were a bit hesitant at first, but we got through all the stages with them because we'd done the research, and any obstacles we came up against, like the stairs, we were able to say, this is why we're doing it. So that's the thing you really need to be, when you go with the department, they will do it, they will allow it, but you need to show them that you know what you're doing, that you're capable, you've done the research, and there are reasons why. It's not just, oh, we're going to go do bush kindy. No, this is why. So part of it, when we're down there, we clean it up. Every time before we leave, we have to get all the toys that children have thrown over the fence or rubbish that's come down from the creek. And so that moved on to a sustainability turtle project. So we talked about, where does our rubbish go? It goes straight out to the Great Barrier Reef, and we focused on turtles. And that went for a whole year. This was last year, and it moved into art. Like, we created a big sculpture that we then sold at an art show. It was made out of recycled materials that we'd found down there and children had collected from home. We got people from the Turtle Rehabilitation Centre came out and spoke to the children. And even now, it's just become a part of our language at the centre. I hear other educators saying if they see children throwing, and children saying it too, if they see children throwing rubbish over the fence, they're like, that's going to hurt the turtles, that's going to go straight out to the reef, so this is what we don't do that. So part of that risky play is it includes culture, sustainability, science. It just encompasses everything, like, you know. So they like investigating the wildlife, and there is wildlife down there. And being from this area, which is like a rural residential area, it's something that they do need to know. They need to know how to handle snakes and so forth. So these guys, I put this photo in because they're challenging each other, but they're hard to tell by the photo, but they're like 2.5 years old. You know, they're capable, they're competent, they can do it. I often find when we first go down to Bush Kindy, the children are all excited and then they're running around and they want to see everything. And I have it blocked off by flags. So I'll have a flag down one end and then we go put flags down the others. And they know the boundaries, that they can't go past these flags. And if they do, then we're leaving the Bush Kindy area. And so far, I've not had any children break those rules. They're pretty good with that. But after we've been down there for a while, then I notice a change in behaviour once they start connecting with country and taking time to breathe and just sitting and looking at the little things that they find become so important to them. And just sometimes climbing up and sitting on a branch and just taking that time to breathe, which is often, you know, they're busy children. They don't often do that. But I find going down into the Bush Kindy area really helps them out with that. So mentally learning how to get out of trouble, learning your own boundaries and that of the environment around them. So these children, it's a bit hard to see in this photo, but they're actually quite high up. So this little child, she was the first one to attempt climbing over, I call it the ravine. There's a big puddle down the bottom, and they didn't ask, they didn't say, oh, can we do this? Or they knew that they could, but they just had to do it safely. And so then they all started trying, and you can see, like, it's like they're rock climbing, and yeah, they managed to do it. And the confidence and talking each other through it, there's ones often standing to the side, put your foot there, put your hand there, like, this is how we do it. So I'll show you a video, and this is to show that not all classrooms have 4 walls and that learning happens everywhere. So as I said before, going on country involves all ages. We often will take the babies down. We do mixed age groups. Sometimes you'll see in other photos where we're doing things like collecting firewood. It could be, if it's on vacation care, there's older children with the babies. We also have pet goats that we take down there as well. So yeah, you're not restricted by age. So does anybody have any questions?
Louise, Ellen asked previously, how did the 17-second rule come about?
It was mainly just looking into, she's from Denmark or Sweden, don't quote me, Ellen Sandseder, and she's very big on like the forest schools and risky play. And she was saying, like, I read in research of hers, take time to stop and observe the children first before stepping in. There was also a news report that I saw about a school in New Zealand that had taken out all rules out of their lunchtime in the playground. There are no rules. And the principal was saying that since there's been no rules, they haven't had any accidents and problems with fighting. And his one rule was he doesn't help the children out of trees. If they get up there, they have to get down there themselves. So it was sort of with those, I was thinking, well, this is why we need to take time. We need to stop before we come in with, oh no, that's too risky. So for me, 17 seconds, 20 seconds, it was sort of enough for me to assess the situation and for the children as well. I think the biggest thing is knowing your children and trusting them. There are some children that you'll see later on, we have like climbing that I would never help them up to climb into the trees, because I know them and I know that they're not yet ready. But when they are, then that's fine. It's about knowing the children and trusting them. One of the hardest things we had to overcome with introducing risky play was not the parents and not the department, but it was staff. Staff had a real problem with doing it. And I must admit, from my childhood, which involved a lot of risky play, I am the sort of person that's like, okay, let's give it a go. I'll do it first and then look at what could be the potential dangerous outcomes for myself. Whereas we do have a few staff that are really risk averse and really struggle with it. Even today, really struggle with allowing the children to participate in risk. And that sometimes caused a bit of friction between myself and them, because I'm like, no, let's go, let's do it, come on, it's fine. And sometimes I felt like I was dragging them through it, like, you're going to come and do this. So that was something I had to change about myself as an educator. After listening to them, I understand their fears, and that's their journey to get over that, not me to drag them through it, if that makes sense.
One of the questions I asked was,
Yep.
do you have to complete a risk-benefit plan? So
Yes.
not only do you identify the risk, but, you know,
the benefits.
identify the benefits of the risky
Yes.
play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. That was our first thing, risk assessments and risk benefit.
Yeah.
And I know I have heard a lot of people saying they don't really like calling it risky play. They prefer to call it risk benefits, like the benefits of it, not that it's putting a negative connotation on it, if that makes sense.
When you've got regulations that you're required to make a risk management plan, you know.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You do.
And that saves yourself as well, because you have that to always refer back to and to help you out with department, parents, anything like that. That's sort of becomes your Bible. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Okay, so play near dangerous elements. So we have fire pits, and as you've seen, water. So with fire pits, by age 4, most children have experienced candles on a birthday cake, and they've learnt that fire is fun, friendly, and easily controlled. Unfortunately, those beliefs combined with a few unsupervised minutes and matches left within reach can lead to tragedy. We don't want to take away the pleasant family activities that involve fire, such as camping, barbecuing, cooking, and religious ceremonies. But we do need to teach children, including very young children, that fire is an adult tool, and we need to teach them the life safety skills that save their lives in a fire. Therefore, our fire pit experiences within a safe, structured environment are an important teaching tool. So we often, during Kansas winter, which goes for like 2 days, we do have fire pits. We don't do it in summer, obviously, because we'd all die. But yeah, we do things like we roast marshmallows. It's sort of a bit hard to see there, but when I first broached the idea of a fire pit with the parents, one of our parents, well, actually a couple of our parents are with the Volunteer Fire Brigade, and they actually said to me, can we send you the handbooks that they use regarding like camping and children, and they actually came and talked to the children and talked to us about what you could do. It's a bit hard to see down in the photo, but there is like pink with spray painted around like where the circle, the fire safety circle is, so they're really not to step over that. Now we've got to a point where the children know about it, and automatically, if I bring out the fire pit, they go and they draw the circle themselves, and they'll do it a few times because it gets, obviously, as they're walking past, and they know not to run near the fire and things like that. So they're involved in all of that, and they're knowing through play, through teaching it. They have to collect firewood with us, so that's a big part as well. Now, even this year, what they've started doing, which I was quite pleasantly surprised, they did it without my knowledge. One of the children came up with the idea of, because we'd usually just collect it on the day. No, they're now doing it anytime they find fallen branches or sticks in the yard, they're collecting them, and they've got a spot in a milk crate that they go and put them in that, break them up, put them in that. So they're planning in advance for days when we do a fire pit, because we don't do it like every week, or they love it that much. They're like, let's get ready for this. And all ages help with collecting for the fire pit. We cook popcorn, and as you can see, there are babies around. They'll sit down around the fire on milk crates or chairs or on the floor. It's a really lovely atmosphere, like to be able to sit and just chat to the children, and they're asking questions, and things such as the different smell that different wood makes. One time the children had found, I couldn't even tell you what kind of branch it was, but it had these seeds on it. So we put it in the fire, and the seeds went up like a firecracker. And that was just amazing to them to see that. And touch wood, we haven't had any burns. So with water down in the bush Kindy, we do get water down there at times. And a lot of our children, well, all of our Kindy children, we don't take the babies down there when it's got water of it, like obviously. But a lot of our Kindy children, they go to swimming lessons at the daycare. So again, knowing this child, and he does know how to swim, and I know it's not deep, it's only up to sort of his knees. They will wade through the water at times. And then you'll get other children don't want to do it. So it's really up to, like with the staff, I leave it up to a level that they feel comfortable participating with. They do things like finding bits of wood and engineering and creating bridges and pushing each other off it, and just generally those science and having fun. Does anybody have any questions about water or fire? No? So challenging environments do not need to be expensive. Let's play at high speed and play at great heights. One of our most successful risky play materials has been bales of hay that we paid $8 for from the local feed shop, and they've been like a water slide down the hill. They've been cubby houses, mazes. I did have a video, but I couldn't find it, of they'd built the bales of hay up to be a big wall like you'd find at the speedway or the races, and they rode the bikes down the hill into the bale of hay. And staff were doing it too, and it was just, they had such great fun doing it. Has anybody here ever watched The Big Bang Theory? And there's an episode where Sheldon's in a ball pit and he pops up like Bazinga. They'd made the mazes and pulled part of the hay apart, and you'd see these heads popping up, and that's just what it reminded me of, like they're crawling around and that risky play, getting them up high, and yeah. So the children will help us make swings out of natural material. So they're wood and rope, and just making swings the old-fashioned way. Tire swings. Some of them are up high, and the rule with that is that we don't put the children in the swing. They have to be able to get up to get into it themselves. And then others, like the tire swings, and that are down low. And this is a high one. You can see, compared to the perspective of the other child, like it is quite high, but he had to be able to climb up, work it out to climb up to get into it. Making rope bridges. they were quite good because they were so unsteady for the children. And that went, it was a huge big maze that went around quite a fair bit of the yard where we had trees that was all lined up, and they all had to, and they helped design them, they helped build them. They're a part of the whole process. So this is a video of, we like to use a lot of recycled materials and a lot of natural materials. And this was one I only took the other day actually. We had been doing the song 5 Grey Elephants, and it evolved into the children built an obstacle course, and you can see a lot of it's out of recycled materials. They're pipes that have been cut in half, and because they're unstable, it's about the risk of falling and being able to get across them. It's really, really simple but effective, you know. We, as I said, with the recycled materials, usually once a year our owner gives us like $100 per room, and we get the centre bus on a weekend, and we'll go to all the op shops and buy up big, and that's been really good for, as I said, our sustainability program. Just thinking outside the box of what we can do with different materials, you know, and then it's evolved on from there. Like staff are bringing things in. If they live in an area where there's a lot of new builds going, they'll go through the dumpsters at night, and you know, the childcare way of finding different materials. But these electrical spools, this is emotionally feeling out of control, overcoming fear. So they like to stand up, as you can see, there's a child standing on it, but they also like to put them up the top in a line, and then they'll run in front of them. And I often call it like the Pamplona running of the bulls, and they run in front, and the fear is they're looking back all the time to see how close the reels are coming to them, and then they'll veer off. But it's also taught them they've got to look out for other children. So beforehand, they're like guiding all the children, no, move out of the way, like we're going to do it. They love that fear, that becoming out of control, not being able to control that situation. And when we first started doing this, I'd invited prep teachers from one of the local schools to come to the Kindy to talk to them about what their expectations were for school readiness. And they saw the children doing this, and I did think, oh no, they're going to be horrified. But they were like, oh, I wish we could do this. Isn't that fantastic? Like, they had Reggio training as well, so they were understanding of the benefits of risky play, which was like, thank goodness I don't look like a complete weirdo letting the children like run down the hill with these, you know, reels chasing them. Making cubby houses. So again, like with the bales of hay, and then we'd been trimming back one of the hibiscus trees, and the children grabbed all the branches and made themselves cubby houses. Now, originally with those bales of hay, I'd got them and thought it was my idea that we were then going to get mud and make them into like these little adobe huts, but that just went totally out the door once the children saw them, and once I saw what they could do with them rather than what I wanted them to do with it. Like, if we had had my way, it would have just been this standing structure that probably after a little bit would have been too boring for them. But the bales of hay play, that it can go on for months. They just come up with so many new ideas of how to use them, and it's just so cheap and so effective. Again, like obstacle courses, so they're all climbing on them, and sometimes they'll put them that they're standing up like this, and that risk of potentially falling. And thankfully, we also have really good parents that are understanding and don't get worried. They're not worried about that risk. They are. I think it could be potentially our community being a rural residential area. So a lot of the families they go camping, they go shooting, fishing. So they are doing those risky activities themselves. They come from that background. I don't know if you're like from an inner city centre, I don't know how well that would necessarily be accepted. I don't know, that's something that you would have to sort of think about. Physically climbing a little higher, running a little faster, or jumping a little further. So often what we do is we just, the material's there for the children and they make their own way. And as I said, working for ABC, there's no way I would have ever been allowed to have that happen, but this is what we do. So jumping from tractor tires, I always think of my childhood of playing out on the beach with tractor tires and how much fun that was. And yeah, it's nice to be able to give that back to these children as well. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Julie asks, do you bring the hay in to prevent it getting wet and spoiling?
No, because usually the time when we do it, we don't do it in our wet season. I wouldn't do it then because, yeah, it would go really quickly. We tend to do that sort of experience about now when there is less rain in the area. And I think the last time we were doing that, it was really dry and there was no rain. But yeah, up here when we get a true wet season, it can rain every day for 3 months. So no, that's not something that we do then. Excursions are risky experiences. So we have a big, the Botanic Gardens and Centenary Lakes in Cairns, and they have a nature play area. If you're from this area or you're ever up here, go have a look at it. It's won awards. It's pretty good. But we take the children walking through the wetlands at the local Botanic Gardens. We will take them fishing at a local river. And part of that too, being in North Queensland, is we have to talk to them about safety with crocodiles. And then that becomes a community thing too. Like I'm not a fisherman, so I had to go around to people from the area, like parents and that I know, go fishing and do all that, and say to them which areas are safer, like which areas would you suggest, where would you go? So it's about creating those connections as well. We didn't catch anything, but the children absolutely loved it. And this was a good sustainability project too, because when we got there was rubbish that people had left. So the children, we helped clean it up. And then when we got back to the centre, I always get the children to draw. We talk about the experiences we've done, we draw about it, and they made up signs that they wanted to put up to say, don't leave your rubbish here, put it in the bin. So yeah. We will often go and walk to the park. We've taken like the Sun Bus, the local buses. We've hired buses. We once walked the whole centre, and this was from nursery up down to the local park for a big teddy bears picnic with the community. So we're not restricted by transport. And a lot of times they like when we get the big buses, because we go into the NAIDOC March in town, so we hire a big bus and take all the children into the NAIDOC March and participate, and they love the bus more than most experiences. We do flying kites at the park, and as you can see, like it's a pretty big, it's way bigger than what the photo's even showing, and we have a few children, but there's children up on top of that little hill that their whole experience with that, they love the flying kites, but there's a BMX track behind it. They spent the whole time just running around this BMX track. And whilst I could still see them, they weren't close to me, but I allowed them that distance because I could see that they were safe. I knew that risk of being, that risk of being out of my, you know, area of reach, but I could see them, I could see that they were safe, and still allow that. We do mixed age excursions, as I said. These are actually two siblings when we went flying kites, so we took some babies. One time we took babies and kindies, and that was really lovely. Like, he's helping his brother fly the kite, and he got down to his level and was saying to him, like, I'm so proud of you, you're such a big boy, look how well you're doing. And yeah, it was really lovely. And then it's lovely to be able to tell the parents, this is what's going on. If we do cooking experiences, we take the children shopping. So that's like a risky experience in itself. It can be a bit difficult. So we write up shopping lists and take the children out into the community, and they help get all the ingredients, and they have to read the shopping lists that we've written. And yeah. So this is Jarragon, which is known as Walsh's Pyramid. And I don't know if any of you know, but in August each year, except for this year, they have a big race. It's an international race, and people run from the middle of Gordonvale up to the top of the pyramid and back. They're absolutely crazy, because there's no way I would want to do it. But this is Walsh's Pyramid, which is near where we are. And so, again, as I was talking to you about, sometimes I can be a bit dogmatic with the staff. The vacation care staff, I'd been on their back about, I didn't feel that they were doing enough risky play experiences with the children, when realistically looking at it, if this was another service, they're far exceeding what would be a normal risky play experiences. But I was like, no, it's not enough. And so talking to them about that, and it did get heated. And this experience happened about 6 months after this conversation that I'd had with them, that they actually got the local SES members and the school children on vacation care, and they climbed the pyramid. So this is leaving the car park. And I think I wouldn't be able to even do that. Like, and they had strict rules with the SES, spoke to them, and they had like little backpacks with water in it. And if they got to halfway and they didn't have enough water, then they weren't allowed to the top. So they started out with, like, I think there was like 20, 30 children. And we did think that parents would be like, no, they can't do it. No, we had to put on extra staff, because that many families were like, yes, you know, we want our children to do this. So this is the kind of terrain that they were climbing. Again, as I said, they were with the SES. There's no way, as I said, no way I could do that. These were the last 4 that got to the top. So a lot of the older children didn't even make it halfway, because they weren't listening. Well, they made it halfway, but they weren't listening with the water. These guys, all grade 2 at that stage, every single one of them was a grade 2 child, second grade child. And yeah, they were the 4 that made it to the top. Quite proud. They were all my ex-Kindy children. So I was like, yes, for risky play. Yeah. And it was really lovely. The guy from the SES, Steve, was saying he's been climbing, like he's done Mount Kilimanjaro and all different climbs. And he talked about what an experience it was for him to take these children up and to the top, and how well they did. And he was just really, really impressed with that. And so this is them at the top of Walsh's Pyramid, which, like, that's a risky play experience. So then from that, I actually spoke to the staff after the Jarragon climb, the Walsh's Pyramid climb, and said to them, I'm so proud of you. Like, look at where we were 6 months ago, like having these discussions, and how you've grown. And, you know, I ate my words, said to them, I'll eat my words, like this, that was fantastic. That's an experience that those children are always going to remember. So then they themselves have gone on, and so now they do things with children with surf lifesavers, and they go canoeing in the Babinda Creek. This is all on their vacation care. And I think, how fantastic is that? Like, they're not spending their vacation care sitting at a centre on a computer. They're going out, they're doing things, they're making memories that they're going to have for a lifetime involved in this risky play. So providing a challenging environment is important. However, supervision is crucial, and use the expertise of your community members. So we would never have been able to do those experiences without our our relationships with the community, with the SES members, with the surf lifesavers. So that's really a big part of it. And when you look at like assessment and rating, and it's about becoming a part of the community. So the risky players really helped us, as I said, become more seen in the community, because where our service is, it's not in the centre of the town. So a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't even know that you guys were there. So we're being seen. They know we're known in the areas. Oh, you're that centre that does all those really cool like activities, and then the ones from the education department will refer to us. Oh, you're the risky play centre, the one that does all the risky play. So you know, to me that's really great. So any questions about that? Anyone want to come and climb the pyramid? I'm not taking you. So we have a lot of animals at our centre as well. So that's playing really a dangerous element. Like, you know, they're animals. So we have some goats. We have Norman, and we got Norman as a 3-day-old goat, and they've had their horns, and he's dehorned and he's been desexed. And Chipmunk, she was actually, she's a dwarf goat, and she was on loan to us from the local feed shop. She was in a herd, and the bigger goats were beating her up. So they knew we had Norman, and they reached out to us and went, hey, do you want to take Chipmunk for a bit? And now they've said to us, you can have her. She just fits in so well with children. They're like, you can have her on permanent loan. And I found having, especially the goats, during this whole coronavirus has been really good for the children. It's been a really, and the staff too, like, it's been a really calming, therapeutic experience to be able to just go out and play with the goats. And yeah, they've really become a part of everyday life at our centre. So they're not just put in a pen and we look at them. They come out, they play with the children. The children need to learn, because Norman's only young. He's like about 8 months old. So sometimes he can go a bit crazy, and if the children start running, he'll run with them. They're very gentle with the kids. They don't like knock them over or anything, but you know, the children know that they have to be aware of that potentially could happen. There's Norman. And he's known throughout the community. If I'll say something and they're like, oh, Norman's a superstar. So we have snakes at our centre too. This is Crunch. She's in the Kindy. She's a children's python. And I have to warn you, if you are frightened of snakes, maybe look away.
Wiggle it in front of his nose a little bit.
So that's a child feeding Crunch.
Okay, you can keep it still now. Nose is there. He's getting ready, and you'll grab it in a second. Ready? Come on, everybody. Just keep it still. He's thinking about it. He's just taking his time. Come on. Hey, there we go. Yep. Wiggle it in front of his nose.
This is Severus, our other python. He has a big enclosure out in the foyer. So, and he is the most docile animal you will ever meet. Sometimes he doesn't move for days. Yeah, the children absolutely love him. When we first got him, because he was, one of our parents worked for Hartley's Creek Crocodile Farm, and she saw that I'd found this enclosure online and got it, and we were looking for another snake, and she went, hey, I've got this python, do you want him? And we think, oh yeah, and then comes this 2.5 metre long python. Thankfully, even the parents that are frightened of snakes are now fine with him, because they see just how gentle he is. But yeah, our first day of getting him, the ranger at the time, her son, who was 1.5, picked up his tail and bit his tail, and he didn't even like bat an eyelid at all. He's very, very gentle. But again, the children have to learn not to touch his face, or not to, you know, we don't put them around their necks because of worries of that risk that can happen. But as you can see, they do get out. So this is feeding Severus, and we do feed Severus. The children help feed Severus, but differently to Crunch. So if you can see, they'll put the quails in the and rats in the cage and then step away. They don't hand feed him because we do consider that too risky, because he is that bigger snake with a, as much as he's not venomous, it's still be pretty confronting as a parent to come and find that a python had bitten your child. And so that's, yeah, that's dinner time. Sorry for anyone that's frightened of snakes. We have lots of lizards. We've got like 3 blue-tongued lizards. We have a big insect tank in one of the rooms. And now this staff member, she does not like animals. She doesn't really like the goats. She doesn't like the snakes. She's petrified of the snakes. She doesn't like the lizards. And I do think, oh my God, this is not a place for you. But she loves insects. And so we worked with her, and she, instead of having any of the other lizards or anything in her room, she has this huge big tank, and the children will go and find different insects, and they put them in, and they've bred from them, and it's really amazing experience, and one that I'm happy to have the snakes and the lizards. I wouldn't really want the insects, but children absolutely love it. We've got some birds. So we've got, this is Nana. She's one of our, she's a Latino lorikeet, I think. But would you like, you know, I'm going to show you our most dangerous animals. So you think we've got snakes and goats. What do we have? These ones, there's 3 animals. One, we had department visits because we had a complaint from a parent about this one animal. And the other 2 have probably bitten every staff member and most of the parents in the centre. A couple of the children, but not too many. So there's the lorikeets that are at the front of our centre, and we have big signs up saying, if you put your fingers in, they like to nip. And I call them our security team, and they're pretty good with the children. Like, they've only bitten 1 or 2, but oh mate, they've ripped my hands to shreds at times. But they are part of, I think, if something ever happened to them, it would absolutely devastate everybody in the centre, because they're just so full of life. Like, they'll woof whistle to all the parents that come through, especially like the dads or any tradesmen. They're like, that bird just sexually harassed me. So they're woof whistling at them. Larry was actually given to us by, again, the one we got the snake off. She gave us Larry. He'd been her brother's bird. And he yells out, do you want a drink? Do you want to smoke? All sorts of things like that. They don't swear, thank God. But they've started now saying, they'll say thank you when people leave, like thank you. And now they've started yelling out, see you later. So they're fantastic. But yeah, they have bitten a lot of people, and the children know the signs of when they can pat them or not. If they stick their head out of the cage and put their head down, the children know they can scratch their head. But if you put your fingers in the cage, you know, so that there is that risk. But yeah, they're not the ones we had the complaints to the department about, but they have terrorised most of the centre. This one's the one we had the department come out about, our baby Budgie, because she was on a child's, and not this child, but another child, on the child's shoulder, and he's moved as she's gone in, and she did nip him just slightly on the face. And it was that one parent that, you know, yeah, she took it to the department, and the department were pretty good. They were actually more concerned about the snakes than the budgie. So they then came out, and our ranger, thankfully our ranger, she actually has worked, like she's worked in the animal, like in zoos and things like that. So we do have her expertise, which is absolutely fantastic. So she showed them, we brought some of the Kindy kids out, and she showed them how we deal with the snakes, and they were fine. They didn't want to touch the snakes, but they were fine. But yeah, they were called out because of the budgie, not the snakes or the goats. So we do, as I said, we get a lot of wild snakes come around. So this was one that I actually found down the back in the creek, and it's a wild blue phase tree snake. So Cindy, who is our ranger, she knows, no way I would pick it up not knowing what it was, but she'll pick them up. We often call her, she'll pick it up, come and deal with it. And yeah, we do show them to the children and involve them in that, and always talking to them about never pick up snakes. And yes, it is blue. They're common to Gordonvale area of that colour, and yeah, absolutely stunning. So we always tell the children to never pick up snakes in the wild, to never touch a snake on the head because it might bite you. And if you see one, like to freeze and call a teacher. And this is just something that we reiterate to them pretty much on a daily basis because, as I said, we have the snakes out. And this year particularly, we've had a lot come up from down the back. The educator that I told you about that is absolutely petrified of snakes the other day pulled open a drawer outside and there was one chilling in there and she started screaming and I could hear her. I thought, there's a snake. So it came out. It was just a brown tree snake. But the children are aware of that. And it's good for this area because we do get death adders and taipans, and so it is something that really needs to be talked about all the time, because often when we say to them in the start, before we got the snakes, as we'd say, like, what do you do if you see a snake? Pick it up. No. So there's that benefit in risk. Does anyone have any question about the animals, or no? Would anybody have a snake at their centre like Severus? No.
You're the first centre I've heard that's had a snake. I've seen other animals.
Yeah.
But you're the first one with a snake.
Oh, there you go. There's another centre on the beaches here in Cairns that does have like reptiles. Not as big as ours. Like he's a bit of an anomaly.
I've had pet snakes visit.
Yeah.
And have had, I don't like snakes, so, no. But I physically have had to hold a snake and allow it to do whatever, and while keeping myself calm, because of the children, the role modelling children, and that was probably the most frightening thing I've ever done at kindergarten.
Yeah. Before we got the snakes, because at that time there was only myself that was ever interested in them and said, yeah, I'd be fine with having a snake in the kindy. The other staff were all like, no. And then when one of the other staff said, because I said to the director, you cannot get a snake if I'm the only one who will look after it. I said, because this is a long-term commitment, and what about when I go on holidays, or if I leave, what are you going to do? And then one of the other staff went, yep, no, I'd help out too. So we started from that, and then we got Cindy, the ranger, in. And also it's been good for the other staff, other than one or two, they have got to the point where they can touch them and pat them, and they're used to them. Same with a lot of the parents too. So last year I went to Melbourne there was a conference for nature pedagogy, for international nature pedagogy. I don't know if you've ever heard of Claire Warden and Angela Hanscombe, and Angela Hanscombe, who's an OT, talked about the vestibular system. And it honestly just blew me away sitting there, and she was listing all these things, and I was like, yep, I can see that. That's children in my centre. That's this one, that's this one, that's this one. So the vestibular system really ties in with risky play. So it's an elaborate sense that's involved in keeping our bodies upright when jumping, or when standing from a seated or sitting position. And she talked about how they're doing studies that children now can't sit up in their chair. They're falling out of their chairs because they don't have those core muscles because of the lack of play, and they're not able to do it. And she was saying things like fidgeting, and just trying to see what fidgeting, concentration, can't sit at group time. Like sometimes like mat time, you get children that have to lay down on the floor because they can't sit up for any length of time. They're falling off their chairs. They're not having that core strength. And so the vestibular system means good balance. It improves visual tracking, hand fine motor skills, like looking up at the whiteboard, then down at their work. Develops normal muscle tone. Oops, sorry. Gone too far now. Hang on, see if I can go back. Sorry. Develops and maintains normal muscle tone, supports language development, helps with a child's self-care and independence, coordinating both sides of the body, like for example doing buttons up or a zip, and encourages self-regulation. So activities that really help with developing the vestibular system, like rolling, crawling, tummy time, stomach time, climbing, jumping, swinging, upright, upside down, side to side spinning, basically moving their bodies in a particular, their head in as many different positions or movements as possible. So when she was talking and I was thinking of specific children, and then I decided to introduce like spinning. So we've got hula hoops, and we at times when it is getting a bit rowdy or they're not listening, we'll go out and we'll do spinning, just spinning, and same with like the swings. Children don't necessarily get to roll down hills anymore. You think about all those things that we did when we were kids, they're not doing that. And even with the amount of outdoor play that we have at my centre, I still don't really think it's enough, because they're not doing it on weekends and after school, or even some of the children are in care from 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 at night, and they're not getting that time with their parents, going down to the park and just playing and just developing all those really important skills. So I've got this video. It's just a basic one of how you can work on that spinning with the vestibular system. And as I said, we're really lucky at my service that we've got the room. I do know I've worked at centres which are tiny, where you just wouldn't be able to do that without knocking over, 30 other children. So there's also calming vestibular activities, such as slow rocking movements and relaxation games. We do a lot of yoga with the children, inside and outside. We did attempt goat yoga, but the goats weren't really into it. The children were excited, but yeah, the goats didn't do it. So if you want more information on the vestibular system, because as I'm not an OT, I'm not an expert, but yeah, Angela Hanscombe and her book that my owner, actually, his daughter is an OT, the owner of my centre. His daughter got him onto that, which really helped me out, because he then started spruiking risky play, and I thought, I've been saying to this for 5 years, as I'm going, yeah, I know. But so he's fully on board with it. So yeah, balanced and barefoot. And if you ever get a chance to see her speak, do it, because she's really good. She also has a service called Timbernook, which is it's in Australia and I think New Zealand, and I know it's in the US, and they do like vacation care, summertime programs specifically targeted towards children with special needs, that they do these day camps where they get out in nature, and because nature is really it levels the playing field. So climbing at great heights at our centre, so play at great heights. So this little boy here in the blue jacket, it was actually a couple of months ago, you'll see in another photo, we've got these climbing, like a climbing wall, which is really, really difficult. And I don't know how he got up there this one day, but he did. And he then just lost it. He lost it. He is also on the spectrum, and I was having trouble calming him down. And to the point I thought, because he couldn't get down, and I was trying to talk him down as to how to do it. And he was just like in fear, frozen up there. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to call the fire brigade and get them to come in to get this child down. But eventually, thank goodness, we talked him down. And I was worried that that was it for him, that he would remember that and fixate on it and never do any climbing again. This has taken a couple of, probably 2-3 weeks later. He did overcome that fear, thank goodness, and he climbs the trees. And now the climbing wall, which you'll see, which is it is pretty high risk. It's very high risk. He does that every day now, and not a problem. And I often say to him, remember that day when you were really scared? Like, how good is it that you've overcome this? If you can overcome this, you can overcome anything. And I often say to the children when they're doing writing, and you get I can't do it. And I'll say to them, if you can climb that tree out in the yard, you can do this. This is easy. That's hard. This is easy. And then you find once that sort of clicks to them, they're like, oh, she's right. Then the writing comes. But this also works with the fine motor, coordination, balance, all those things that you need to do for writing. So this, then they swing out of the trees, they jump. They're pretty good with like warning people, don't get off the mat, off you go. They often, the children are encouraged to create climbing activities during everyday, using everyday items. I know a lot of services don't do that, but this is something that we do. And you can see the ground's fairly uneven. It's like a little dry creek bed there, so there is a fair bit of risk for them. Show you this one. This is our fort. And as you can see, there are staff around, but they're not right there on them. Like, they've got, the children know they have our trust. That in particular was hard for a lot of educators to give up that control of, oh no, you can't do that, you can't climb over there. It took them a while to do that, but once they started seeing the benefits, then they stepped back and allowed it. And often I find when we get new educators come in, they're straight away to the children, oh no, you can't do that. And then I'm there going, no, yeah, they can, let them go. So we've got rocks all around the centre. The children use those for uneven climbing surfaces. Yeah, experiencing fear, so like he's leaping. They'll leap off the rocks, so do the goats. These are our climbing wall. This is a few years ago. The climbing wall has since evolved into, it's got like handholds and stuff as well, which you'll see. And there's a little boy in here with a white hat who can't get it. It takes him a while, but he continues. He's determined.
Keep going. Keep going.
You can see in his mind, he's like, how are they doing this when I can't? So he tries another way.
That's it, Liam. Keep going.
He was saying to me then, how can Noah do it and I can't?
Well done, Liam. Woohoo, you did it.
And the little girl that starts at I can't do it, she pretty much lives up the top of there now. Like, you can't get her down. So this is because of the children like continuing to climb up there, and it was something we thought you're not going to be able to stop them. They love it. So we've then added the little rock climbing wall thing, so they'll go up and down. They do go along, and it is really high. It is very much a risky one. You can sort of see the height of it, and they'll climb along the top. And yeah, the department have seen it, and I don't think they necessarily like it, but we've, touch wood, not had any accidents, and we put in every safety measure that we can. And yeah, just again, having that knowledge to be able to say to them, this is why we're doing it. This is what the children need. And this is to show like all ages. So this is our hibiscus brush, and I think Tilly's probably about 1.5. And, you know, that's a great risky play activity for a child of her age that, you know, potentially as an educator, we could step in and stop that. Go, oh, no, you can't do that. But does anybody have any questions about like the climbing in particular, or no?
Julie's asked, how do you go with the safety mats department-wise?
They're fine with that. They were like, the rocks at once, the big rocks you saw in one photo, they were a bit too close, and I had given the children a rule to say you can't climb past the rocks. But then, so we move the rocks back, and yeah, we do put safety mats down. It's just about working hand in hand with the department. And often, like with the bush kindy, with things like that, we go to them. We don't wait to get complaints. We'll go to them and say, look, this is what we want to do, and da-da-da. And then they're pretty good with working with you, rather than when they're coming because you've asked them, rather than coming because there's been a complaint, if that makes sense. Yeah. So we do outdoor education day during, again, our winter week. No, our cooler months, we do outdoor education day. So usually on a Friday, we have all day is outside. You'll see children often not wearing hats. Our yard is really, really shady. Like there are huge, big advanced trees all the way through. So sometimes the hat thing is a, you know what it's like. It is a bit of a problem. So yeah, we do all activity outside so that they're painting. This little girl had painted Severus, so we have the animals out. Severus came and look, and she was talking to him about her painting and how she had painted him. We sleep outside. So this is a brother and a sister. We have like hammocks. We'll put like little beds out under the trees, and they sleep out there. The older kids love the hammocks. It's great for their vestibular system, the swinging and having fun. Monday is International Mud Day. So yeah, it's the best. We get it. Staff come in spare clothes, and we get the fire hose out, and we absolutely flood. We have a big construction pit, as you can see, and we flood it and just all get into it. And remember, mud will always wash out. However, these memories will last a lifetime. The children will work with tools. So here they're creating a bench for our garden area. Now I put down this science experiment it seems funny to put this as a risky play activity, but I was looking at, on Facebook you get like all the EYLF sites and things like that. And somebody had said they were doing the experiment with Coke, with putting the Mentos in, and other people were like, oh my God, you can't do that. How can you do that? You're bringing diet like Coke into a centre. That's not healthy eating. And it made me really think, because we do it and the children love it and the science in it is valuable. And I thought, how much are we restricting children's learning because of like, it's not, like they're not healthy eating, or it's not safe, or it's not this, because I would never ever have thought of that. And then people were saying, oh, take the labels off. And I thought, well, why? Like, we see that in our everyday life. If people disagree with me, I totally get it. It was me thinking I had never associated that with being a problem with healthy eating, and I've never had the children say, oh, can I have a drink of it? Or it's been a tool for me. It's a tool so yeah, I put it down because I thought, well, if for some people, then that is a risky play, risky experiment, because that's, yeah, that was my thinking with that. I thought, are we over regulating things? Are we thinking too much sometimes? Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Would anybody have a problem with having like the experiments at their centre with the Coke? And yeah, it was not something that I ever thought about. My mind was sort of blown.
I've done the same experiments too, Louise,
Yeah.
and done other different ones with different things. I don't see it any different to how we use. Well, we probably don't do it much anymore, but when we used to use macaroni and lots of other different food items, you know.
Yeah, toilet rolls and
Yeah, or like the chocolate pudding mix that we give to infants when to, you know, finger play.
Yep. So indoor risky play with like dangerous tools. So in home corner, I'm very big with loose parts. So the rocks, they've been money, they've been food, they've been shoved in all these bags and dragged around the centre, and I very much like that rather than the plastic food and things like that, which looks lovely. It does look a bit weird to have all these rocks, but it just expands their imagination. And you know, you do have the risk of they drop it on themselves or throw it or something like that, but yeah, it's always been really good, really well received. Good for numeracy, literacy. Yeah, I can't. And also, you probably see we painted our own teacups and teapots. We do use real teapots and teacups, and they do get broken. And as I said, we go to the op shops and get stuff. And as much as I hate it when they get broken, but it is a part of life, and the children learn to manage that risk. So when we do cooking, we use real tools. These cooking experiences, we actually, there's a street youth van that goes around and gives food to children that are on the street. So we make meals for them, and the children are aware of what we're doing and who it's for, and they get to use all the tools and cut it up, and you know, talk about the fact that not everybody has a home, and this is why that we do this. So yeah, it's about giving back to the community as well. And yeah, touch wood, and I haven't lost any fingers or anything, but I think it was spaghetti and sausages that day. We have like a tinker table, so anything in the centre that breaks, I get the children to fix it, and they have real tools and they pull it apart. And we get visits from the school. So one of our local schools, Jarragon, is a Indigenous college, and the teachers came in and were like, "That's fantastic. That would be so great for our children, but I don't think we'd be allowed to do it." And I thought, well, why not? Like, but yeah, kids love it. They use power tools. They take over the environment. Sometimes for some educators, that's a huge, big risk. But yeah, it's their environment, it's their play space. Any questions? I'm trying to go through quickly because we're nearly at the end. Nope. So becoming a reflective educator. So sometimes we need to understand what the play evolves into is more important than the original intent. There's a quick video here, and in it, the children, they're doing a physics experiment, and one of the children, so they're putting balls down the stairs, and one of them, he comes over with a bat, and you can sort of hear me go, "Nah," to stop him, and then I stopped and went to myself, no, because this is evolving into something that I don't need to control. And it's hard, even now, I still at times have that need to, no, this is not what I want. Yeah. So yeah, every time I look back on that video, I think, if I had to stop that, what learning would I have stopped? And so it was about me reflecting on becoming more of a reflective educator, and not even now still stepping in and stopping the risk, even if it's minimal. And the kids are pretty good with like climbing the trees, for example. I say to them, you can go to a certain level, and if I tell you no, stop, that's it. Like, there's reasons why, it's for safety, and they are really good at that. They know to do it. So these are just 3 women that have inspired me as an educator. There's Dr. Claire Warden and Professor Alma Fleet, and Janet Robertson. She works at Mia Centre in Sydney at Macquarie University. She's an outdoor educator. If you ever get to see any of them speak, take that, because they're awesome, absolutely awesome. As reflective educators, we need to understand that the purpose of risk control is not the elimination of all risk. There's always a possibility of serious or even life-threatening injuries during risky play. However, these risks can be managed through training, implementation of risk assessments, and controlling the most serious risks that are not beneficial to play or can be easily foreseen by the user. So part of our meeting with, I talked to you about for the census results, and we have the community group. One of the things that we came up with, I've sent it to you guys, it's called an I Wonder book. And so we use this big part of our school readiness program, which the risky play pretty much base of our school readiness program, but the I Wonder book. So it's a book that the children have made. So the kindergarten children in our community draw questions about what they're wondering about what prep is like. And then we send their questions to the different preps. There's 4 preps in the community, and the prep children draw and write the answer back to the children. So the first year we did it, one of the children in my class, Ned, said, "Are there jellyfish at prep?" And I must admit, when I was giving this over, I thought, they're going to think these kids are crazy. Like, you know, and I thought, you know what? Let's go with it. Let's go with it. The risk, I'm going to be embarrassed, but let's go with it. Still to this day, we've done the I Wonder books now, I think like 4 times. People still refer to the jellyfish at prep. And it made me think about when I looked at everybody else's, the children's questions, and I thought, do you know what? These children are creative. They're thinking outside the box. It's all to do with this risk, this risk, and they don't feel that fear to ask those questions. Like as adults, I would never ask, do you have jellyfish at prep? I mean, because I know that they probably don't, but I have that fear of asking a stupid question, a silly question. And each year now, they're always looking forward to the questions from the children from my room, because they're weird and they're wonderful. One of the children, wasn't last year, it was the year before, asked if they have cellars at prep, because she loves the movie Hotel Transylvania. But so Melissa from the department had taken it to the school, and when they were going through with it, through the questions, the principal was there, and he went, what's this about? And he's thinking, you know, the movie Matilda, and was this child thinking that school is like absolutely horrific? And so they rang me, and this shows too, like our community connections. They feel free to come, and they rang me at work and went, hey, what's this about? And I said to them, no, the child is like, she's obsessed with vampires and blah, blah, blah. The prep teachers were wondering if it was like a bit of is there a cellar for drinking? So it really shows like how our community has evolved over the last few years, that we now, instead of working as individuals, we do work as a group. And like, it's nice to, when, you know, you walk down the street and I see the prep teachers and like, hey, how you going? And we have that that relationship to be able to talk freely about the children, and people from other services like the C&K, you help each other out. So, and a lot of that has stemmed from that risky play that we're known as the Jellyfish Centre, you know. And the I Wonder books are great. So what we do is it then gets made into a book, and we give them out to the community. So we give them to the library, they go to the schools, they go to all the children. We put them at different shops like the Lifeline shop. We make up posters that the coffee shops and things will put it up, and it's just showing the community what the children are wondering about prep and their answers, and it's really cool. And I'm nearly at the end. So this is sort of to wrap it up. This is showing the 2 little girls, they've just turned 3, and it shows you like their teamwork of helping each other out when they're in trouble. I had to stop the video there. There was an incident going on. But yeah, ultimately, we want children to develop confidence in themselves and their abilities, and we want them to be able to problem solve or ask for help with any issues that may arrive. That essentially, to me, is what risky play is. Does anybody have any last questions? We're all good. Hopefully, our journey helps you out, and yeah, just know that it's not about being the most risky. It's just about doing what's comfortable for you and the children. That's what I've learned. It's not about, you don't have to go and climb the pyramid to, you can do something as simple as climbing in a hibiscus shrub. Like, it's about what's right for you. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Louise. That's been awe-inspiring to look at what your little people are capable of doing. I really enjoyed how you shared your ability to be proactive with the department rather than someone complaining first, you going to them and telling them why, the benefits of this risky play. The thing that I loved most, though, was making memories for a lifetime. That's absolutely true. And I think you should be incredibly proud of the work that you do. So thank you very much, Louise, for a magnificent presentation. Thank you.